Hello, I'm Blaze, and welcome back to Warframe. It's been a busy couple of weeks in Warframe, with the release of so many events and new weapons, some quite interesting, so there's plenty to cover. To start things off, we'll rock out with the Atomos. The Atomos is another entry into the Grineer's directed energy weapons. Somehow, I don't think all those sabotage missions worked out for us, but at least the Atomos and Nucor only seem to appear in our hands. You can pick up the blueprints from the market for 30,000 credits, where the crafting afterwards will need 60,000 credits, 1,500 salvage, 1,300 polymer bundles, 800 Abido, and 2 argon crystals with a mastery rank requirement of 4. Around as expensive as the Toncore and shares a lot of components, so again this might require a little farming, at least for the argon crystals. But if you just can't wait to start channeling 8-bit glories and want the Atomos over your hand right now, you can pick it up pre-built with its own weapon slot and a pre-installed catalyst for 200 platinum. The Atomos' stats are fairly similar to the Gamma Core, though with a few differences. They both have a base damage of 50, with the Atomos damage being composed entirely of heat-based damage, which is useful in most cases, but will not be as effective against the Corpus. The Atomos also has a fire rate of 5 rounds per second, a reload time of 2 seconds, and a magazine capacity of 50. Or perhaps it would be more accurate to say that its battery capacity is 50. From here is where its stats begin to differ. The Atomos' accuracy rating is only 12.5, which means that its beam will often deviate from where you are aiming and will require you to track the beam towards your intended target for anything slightly far away. Moving on to its supplemental stats, it has a 10% status chance and a 5% critical chance with a 1.5 times critical damage multiplier. The critical stats aren't really worth thinking about when they're both that low, but the status chance, while nothing amazing, is decent enough. Additionally, for some reason, the Atomos does actually count as a silent weapon. This might not matter too much, since its damage model might stop you from getting quick kills, but on weaker enemies it can let you get stealth kills, which is decent for an affinity boost. Another way the Atomos differs from the Gamma Core is in its maximum range. The Atomos can only strike out to enemies a mere 15 meters away, which is quite far back towards the shorter end of beam weapon ranges. Thankfully, however, you can mitigate this by adding on the Ruinous Extension mod, which you can farm from the Jackal on Venus. What the statistics don't tell you, however, is the Atomos' main selling point. When an enemy is struck by the beam, it will actually cause an additional beam of plasma to chain from your primary target to another nearby enemy, which will in turn continue chaining onto 2 more enemies, allowing you to hit 4 enemies all at once, meaning the Atomos is like a miniature Amprex. And even better, the range of these plasma chains is also affected by the Ruinous Extension mod, allowing them to branch out for wide area destruction. And I do mean destruction, as the Atomos comes along with the effect of leaving enemies blackened and charred upon death, which aside from being a very cool graphical effect, is also satisfyingly brutal. These branching plasma beams can even actually deal with nullifiers. It is not entirely reliable, but if you strike an enemy outside of the nullifier bubble, the plasma beam can actually penetrate the bubble and strike at the nullifier directly. It's a little bit down to chance, but personally I'm always happy to see us able to get one over on fucking nullifiers. Modding the Atomos has a few options, but I will say the one mod that you will probably really want at all times, as you may have figured out by this point, is Ruinous Extension. The 15 meter range the Atomos has by default is quite limited, so the extra 8 meters that mod gives you makes a big difference, as well as allowing it to cover a larger area in general, like I already said. From there, I will also say that the ammo mutation may prove very useful, as the Atomos is kind of an energy hose due to its relatively high fire rate and relatively low damage per shot. If you use it for long periods of time, you may find yourself running empty quite rapidly without it. You may also find Seeker useful if situational. Being able to hit multiple enemies with the main beam will result in even more branches hitting even more enemies. But for that to be especially effective, you will need to be close to a large cluster of enemies. Add Seeker if you like, but in most cases I feel like it's probably better to just go with another elemental mod in its stead. Okay, all that out of the way, when this gun was first revealed, I think pretty much everyone immediately likened it to the Mega Buster. This thing just screams out Mega Man. I was slightly disappointed that it was a continuous beam weapon instead of shooting little energy pellets or having a big charged shot, but oh well, I can dream. It does happen to look quite good in blue though, so it works out pretty well either way. And the reload animation is pretty nifty. Although the Atomos does strike me as a prototype rather than a functional weapon due to the fact that the 10-0 replaces 2 of the canisters on its side when reloading. I imagine the final version would roll those into 1 instead. Plus it has a bunch of exposed wires towards its front. While other Grineer weapons feature that kind of thing as well, they are usually towards the back and out of the way. On the one hand, I kind of like the idea that we've stolen technology the Grineer are still working on, but I do wonder why we couldn't even be bothered to do a little bit of cable management. Come on now. There is some minor annoyance to the Atomos though. The beam has a fairly wide particle effect, meaning that while you're aiming it can be hard to see where the beam actually is, which is kind of important because it usually isn't actually going where the reticule is. It can make precision aiming a bit difficult as a result, but I suppose this thing isn't exactly meant for precision anyway. And it has a problem I feel is inherent to all beam-style weapons, in that it's not especially satisfying to use. The Atomos does have pretty nice sound assets to it which helps, but it's another one of those point-and-shoot weapons which I never really liked much. Though to the Atomos' credit, I suppose it doesn't cause random pointless shaking at least, so it isn't actually annoying to use like a lot of other things. But that's just like my opinion, man. The Atomos is an excellent choice as a secondary weapon, and is actually quite efficient at taking down larger groups of enemies thanks to being able to hit 4 targets at once with full force. And it will even continue to chain off things like Necros' Shadows of the Dead. Most definitely one of the better secondaries out there, and it has enough going for it to make it stand out as its own thing. Though personally I won't really be using it much unless I feel like showing Dr. Wily why the Tenno are not to be fucked with. Thank you for watching my overview of the Atomos. All comments are appreciated, and I hope to see you around next time. For more content, feel free to click the little preview windows and go and watch my videos on the last Grineer weapon with the Tunkor, or my very brief look at the Axomati. And as always, good luck, have fun, and take care.